Hello, everybody, and welcome to another talk. Thought I'd just kind of do a casual talk today on chords and scales, and maybe some perspectives on thinking about those two things. Um, and so I'll start out by um, just kind of mentioning that if we have a chord, let's say a C major 7, then we have a certain kind of type of sound, and you could color it in different ways. But then as far as improvising from that, then you could, as far as single lines go, have a variety of chords, things that you could play on everything. Okay, so we have, let's say, a few basic different types of chords. Let me just pause for a second. Okay, sorry about the interruption there. So we can think about these very basic kind of families of chords. So one being the major chord, which could be anything from a C major, any root, of course, a major 7 kind of chord, a 6 chord or 6/9 chord. I think that's basically a major chord. Oftentimes it's going to be the 1 or the 4 chord, a certain key, major key, or maybe the flat 6 in a minor key. Or the flat 3. So you could have let's say an E minor, for example. So generally either the 1, the 4, the flat 3, or the flat 6, but of course it could happen kind of anywhere. If you think of maybe Genji, we have this kind of progression. Right, so really a lot of different circumstances. Anyway, the major chord, and then we could think about just different kind of chord scales and things that we might associate with those. So generally, the major scale, or maybe Lydian, so Ionian versus Lydian. Okay. And those are kind of the 7-note kinds of scales. So those are scales that we often work with, that number of notes. Okay. All right. Now, major chords that have a flat 7 that belong to a different family, say the dominant family. And I kind of tend to group those into two basic categories. One being sort of the static sounding, which are more like Lydian and maybe Lydian dominant. So I sometimes think of those as kind of like the static sort of dominant 7s. But not to limit what you can do on those. But then those that are really kind of pushing to get somewhere, those I tend to kind of group those a little bit differently. So maybe so like sort of sound like the Phrygian dominant. Okay, anything along those lines. Right, so there you can think about that harmony at a given moment in time, and think about how you might try to relate, or what's kind of the, I want to say appropriate sound, or what's kind of the thing that would seem to work well for that moment. And so that gives us to the minors, right? So the minor, and I'll just back up a little bit. So all of those kinds of chords, like the major seven, they can all sit in as a predominant chord. Right, so that's a major seven. Sometimes that'll be the predominant in minor, so that's A flat to G, dominant seven to C minor, for example. So I'll just mention that sometimes that roll, and like we said, that would be a flat six sort of thing. Sometimes the roll might sit in as that predominant, and same thing with the dominant seven. It can also fit the role of a predominant. Right, so that would be A flat 7, sharp 11, or 13 to G7 into a C minor chord. So I just want to go into that a little bit, because a lot of these chords could be tonic or predominant, but in the case of the dominant 7, like we said, the dominant 7 has a kind of a particular role, but it can be a predominant, but it's gonna, when it's functioning as a dominant 7, then it's going from some 5 chord to some 1 chord. Okay. When it's the 5 chord going to a 1 chord, right? Okay, so anyway, into minor. Okay, so we have different circumstances that this might fit under. So it's interesting to just think kind of by the numbers. If we were to survey the chords in C major, we would have 2 major type chords, and then we would have 1 dominant, and then we would have 3 minor type chords. Okay, so that's interesting. By the numbers, minor has kind of a larger representation, if you will. So, right. And then we'll get to other chords as well. So kind of what I'm getting at here is that we could have, let's say, in the key of A minor, or with minor, there's a lot of let's say a lot of adaptation, you might say, to it. So you have the minor scale, which is, you might call, if you're looking for a modal name, that would be Dorian. That's the most stable sort of minor sound. And then you have this. So these are for the tonic kind of minors, right? Or so a lot of variation from the fifth to the root there, a lot of different combinations for that. And then as far as minor type chords, right, that are predominant, right, they come before the dominant. So the D minor in the key of C will be predominant when it goes to the dominant. 7's next. Okay, and that would really kind of fit into its function as a 2 chord. So when you look at a particular chord, even though we have these kind of families, these generalizations, they have certain functions within a song. And so it can depend on what key the song is or what the harmonic progression is kind of doing. Okay, I was looking at the 3 chord in the key of E. This is kind of an interesting one because we might adapt this at certain moments. We might turn it into a dominant 7 with a flat 9. And that's where you get the Phrygian dominant, which tends to go to the relative minor in a given key. Sometimes it might fit in as a kind of embedded 2-5. So you might have a 2-5 borrowing from the key of 2 sharps. Or you could stay more strictly into the key area and get minor going to maybe the A7 or the A7 raised 5th as a kind of secondary dominant to the 2 chord. All right, so the minor kind of situation there. And then we get into the minor 7 flat 5. So in the key of C we have the B minor 7 flat 5. So that's another one of the unique kind of chords. So you have the dominant 7, which is the only one of its kind in a given key area. So G7 in the key of C. And the minor 7 flat 5 is another one that's unique in a given key center or diatonic. You notice how similar these are actually. So if I had a G7 in first inversion here, I just survey these notes. We have B, G, D, F. Okay. Now if I go to the minor, so that's the first inversion of G7. If I go into B minor 7 flat 5, B, A, D, F. So it's kind of the A versus the G. Right, similar kind of sounds. But you'll find that anyway, kind of going up in thirds through any key. So you have dominant 7, minor 7 flat 5, D minor, F major 7, A minor, C, E minor, G7, B minor 7 flat 5. So when you go in thirds like that, they have a lot of shared tones to them. So again, I'm not going to do an exhaustive list of these, but one of the obvious kind of ways to think about that scale would be the Locrian sound. And there are different kind of shadings to this too. Just to mention one. So that one's kind of associated with that Phrygian dominant as well. So then we have that. Okay, so I hope my guitar is coming through pretty clear. Appears to be. So I'm gonna hang out for a couple more minutes. Maybe we'll do a little bit of playing, and should have a skill builder video out tomorrow, and maybe another live stream. All right, we'll see how everything goes, and try to think about a tune to maybe play. But I'll do a Cole Porter tune. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for checking this out. Thanks for your membership for those who are members. And let me know in the comments what you're interested in hearing and getting kind of my take on anyway. And for those checking out the podcast, and feel free to get in touch with me and check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/fretprints. Thanks and have a great day and a practice session.